movie tonight at Friday at 7:30 and Saturday at 7:30. Cinema Libre and Equitas Entertainment gave WBAI 20 free tickets to see it. So 10 sets of 2 tickets each. And the first 10 folks that email imprisonedtickets@gmail.com with WBAI in the subject line, and then you have to give your name and whatever, I'm assuming your contact information, will get tickets. So I'm sure they're going to get back to you and say you got them or you didn't get them. But I'm not sure if they filled up from yesterday. Right. So, and now that King has seen it and can come back and say, like, I've seen the light and it's bright.
Don't sleep on this. If you're wondering if it's going to be good, don't let that be the reason that you don't call in to try to get these. And they may all be gone.
No, you got to email in. Imprisonedtickets@gmail.com. Imprisoned, like you've been imprisoned, tickets@gmail.com. And we're doing this because we have started to, we just really are grateful for all the listeners on this show. And so whenever we have a guest, we are trying to get you some swag and some free stuff. And so this is something that we could do that was really exciting, right, King?
Yeah. If you don't get the tickets, you'll still be a winner because it's an unbelievable film. And
because you can buy tickets.
Yeah, you can buy tickets.
It's important this weekend to go see it.
It's really big, really big. Paul and Holly, who were the two principal people in the production company, were saying that everything really rolls on how the weekend is. And if you believe in films that tell it like it is, if you believe in films that give substantial amounts of money to Peace Love, which is a kind of a mental illness, mental health organization the money is going to. They've given money to Dr. Grant, who's a professor of criminology, who is helping with getting the information out about the criminal justice system. He has a book coming out, so we're going to get him on the air. So if you believe in all of that, as we all do, then there's a reason to go see a cultural event that you're going to enjoy.
So free tickets are available, but also, buy the tickets because it opens September 13th, which is today at AMC Empire 25, right in the center of Times Square, right in the center of time of New York, of the universe, etc. Director Paul Kampf, who was here with us yesterday, is going to host a Q&A session after the 7:30 showtimes Friday and Saturday, but there are other showtimes. Again, it's opening at the AMC, so they need to see some numbers so that this is an independent film now because they busted out of their distribution deal so that they could, maintain their integrity. Nice. We want to support them as much as possible. So if this is, it's not just about support, it's about go have a good time, bring your people. Enjoy something good.
And spread the word. Yeah. Spread the word.
Yeah. Well, you're listening to Waking Up. I'm Juliana Forlano. I am going to try to go there myself. I didn't get to go last night for free, and I'm not going to take one of the free sets of tickets from the listeners. So, but I'm happy to support. You know what I mean? You got to support with money, too. 60 degrees outside right now. It's sunny. It's going up to 72. It's a little chilly. I'm not going to lie. I have no idea how to dress in the morning because it's still 5:30 and it's always kind of chilly. Is it going to be 70 degrees and 100% humidity? Is it going to be 90 degrees? I'm sure everyone has this problem, but it's only 60 and it's chilly out there right now. So it's going up to 72. Not a bad weekend. Looking like we're going to have, Saturday, 77, mostly cloudy, mix of sun and clouds, and sun early. That's on Saturday, and then becoming cloudy later in the day. A little bit of thunderstorms tomorrow night. Sunday, 82 degrees and partly cloudy. Wish they didn't close the beaches already here in New York City.
Did they?
They did. Oh. I got a text. Juliana, they're closed. Stop coming. Put your clothes back on.
Is that because of the end of the season or because of waste washing up on shore?
Oh, yeah. No, it's the end of the season, unfortunately. Well, we did you watch the debate last night? You probably didn't because you were watching the movie.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was... Well, I watched the debate last night, and... No, it wasn't bad. It was actually, it was, as debates go, it was interesting. They did a thing where they said it's the top 10 candidates, but I'm not sure how they picked those top 10. I mean, Andrew Yang is in the top 10. That seems unusual, but it was interesting to have him up there talking about universal basic income in front of God and everyone. It wasn't just like a secret idea that leftists have. So that was kind of interesting. Bernie Sanders, I have a little debate recap for you. Bernie Sanders spoke, and he didn't seem like he got as much time as Warren and some of the others, but when he did, he really hit it out of the park. Here he is on how America is falling behind other countries on health care.
Let us be clear, Joe. In the United States of America, we are spending twice as much per capita on health care as the Canadians or any other major country on earth.
This America.
Yeah, but Americans don't want to pay twice as much as other countries, and they guarantee health care to all people. Under my Medicare for All proposal, when you don't pay out of pocket and you don't pay premiums, maybe you have run into people who love their premiums. I haven't. What people want is cost-effective health care. Medicare for All will save the average American substantial sums of money on his or her health care bill.
And then we have Elizabeth Warren also weighing in on the need to reform the healthcare system.
So let's be clear. I've actually never met anybody who likes their health insurance company. I've met people who like their doctors. I've met people who like their nurses. Let's be clear. I've actually never met anybody who likes their health insurance company. I've met people who like their doctors. I've met people who like their nurses. I've met people who like their pharmacists. Met people who like their physical therapists. What they want is access to health care. And we just need to be clear.
We talked about how we can reform the way we see our trade priorities. There was a lot of talk about trade. Here she is.
So our trade policy in America has been broken for decades. And it has been broken because it works for giant multinational corporations and not for much of anyone else. These are giant corporations that, shoot, if they can save a nickel by moving a job to a foreign country, they'll do it in a heartbeat. And yet, for decades now, who's been whispering in the ears of our trade negotiators? Who has shaped our trade policy? It's been the giant corporations. It's been their lobbyists and their executives. The way we change our trade policy in America is, first, the procedures. Who sits at the table? I want to negotiate trade with unions at the table. I want to negotiate it with small farmers at the table. I want to negotiate it with environmentalists at the table. I want to negotiate with human rights activists at the table. And you asked the question about leverage. If I can just respond to that one. The leverage? Are you kidding? Everybody wants access to the American market. That means that we have the capacity to say right here in America, you want to come sell goods to American consumers, then you've got to raise your standards. You've got to raise your labor standards, and you've got to raise your environmental standards so our companies can compete on a level playing field. We can use trade not to undermine American workers and not to undermine American farms and not to undermine small businesses in this country. We can use trade to help build a stronger economy.
Senator Harris, how would your...
Senator Harris. I don't have a lot of coverage of Senator Harris because she was not so outstanding in terms of the debate. Senator Castro was, or excuse me, Julian Castro was asked a question about, what's our leverage with China, and he blew it. He didn't. He talked in a circle, but he didn't answer the question. And then what you just heard was Warren's response to that. And boy, she sure made it seemed like he missed a very simple answer, like, hello, we have a huge market here. And I thought it made her shine. And it's nice to, would be nice to have a smart president. Not saying that he wasn't intelligent. He had a lot of other intelligent answers and interesting answers about things. But boy, she really hit it out of the park with that one, if you ask me. Even got applause where a lot of the other people didn't get applause last night. Beto O'Rourke was asked about whether or not he would take away guns. It was kind of a gotcha question for Beto, but this is what his response was.
Some on this stage have suggested a voluntary buyback for guns in this country. You've gone further. You said, quote, Americans who own AR-15s and AK-47s will have to sell them to the government, all of them. You know the critics call this confiscation. Are you proposing taking away their guns, and how would this work?
I am, if it's a weapon that was designed to kill people on a battlefield. If the high-impact, high-velocity round, when it hits your body, shreds everything inside of your body because it was designed to do that so that you would bleed to death on a battlefield and not be able to get up and kill one of our soldiers. When we see that being used against children, And in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15, and that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
Congressman, thank you.
And I want to say this. I'm listening to the people of this country. The day after I proposed doing that, I went to a gun show in Conway, Arkansas, to meet with those who are selling AR-15s and AK-47s and those who are buying those weapons. And you might be surprised, there was some common ground there. Folks who said, I would willingly give that up, cut it to pieces. I don't need this weapon to hunt, to defend myself. It is a weapon of war. So let's do the right thing, but let's bring everyone in America into the conversation, Republicans, Democrats, gun owners, and non-gun owners alike.
Can I make a point?
Well, did you hear that huge amount of applause? Because even just to say, yes, I am going to do that, that's an act of courage on a stage like that. And hopefully the other, candidates will follow suit. What do you think, King, about that?
Hey, I think it's great, and I've always said that I want to balance that, not remove it. I want to balance it with dealing with the mental health issues, which I haven't heard as much clamoring for. But I think it's a two-part piece, and they need to do both.
Yeah. And they need to deal with the economy, too, because sometimes people wouldn't feel so, there's so much that goes into it, isolated.
That's a great one to add to it. Yeah.
They didn't really talk economy last night, but Bernie Sanders was asked a right-wing talking point question about democratic socialism. They asked him you'll hear, we've got the clip here. They asked him if he was like, how is he different from Maduro, is what they, so we shall see. And he crushed it.
I'll tell you what I believe in terms of democratic socialism. I agree with what goes on in Canada and in Scandinavia, guaranteeing health care to all people as a human right. I believe that the United States should not be the only major country on earth not to provide paid family and medical leave. I believe that every worker in this country deserves a living wage and that we expand the trade union movement. I happen to believe also that what, to me, democratic socialism means is we deal with an issue we do not discuss enough, Jorge, not in the media and not in Congress. You got 3 people in America owning more wealth than the bottom half of this country. You got a handful of billionaires controlling what goes on in Wall Street, the insurance companies, and in the media. Maybe, just maybe, what states should not be the only major country on earth not to provide paid family and medical leave. I believe that every worker in this country deserves a living wage and that we expand the trade union movement. I happen to believe also that what, to me, democratic socialism means is we deal with an issue we do not discuss enough, Jorge, not in the media and not in Congress. You got 3 people in America owning more wealth than the bottom half of this country. You got a handful of billionaires controlling what goes on in Wall Street, the insurance companies, and in the media. Maybe, just maybe, what we should be doing is creating an economy that works for all of us, not 1%. That's my understanding of democratic socialism.
Secretary.
I noticed during the debate last night, a lot of people tried to make jokes. Cory Booker made a couple of jokes. They were funny because one of the guys, I think it was Beto, started doing that thing where he says the answer in English, then he says it again in Spanish, and then Cory Booker said, let me tell you my answer to that. Some other question. No. And in Spanish, no. So that was pretty funny. But there were some funny moments. I don't know. I just think Bernie is funny on his own when he just talks, as you said earlier, King. Okay, and the last thing we have is, a clip of where Biden seemed to think Bernie was already elected president.
I hear this large savings. The president think, my friend from Vermont think.
He's used to attacking Trump. That's his thing. We're going to take a brief musical break. It's 61 degrees outside. It's going to be fairly clear and sunny day, only going up to 71. So an actual fall day as we move into fall here on Waking Up and across the listening area. I hope you're having a lovely Friday so far. Musical break, and then we're back with Dean Baker. Forlano. I also wanted to make mention that there is a boycott of ABC going on because they played a commercial featuring AOC. Brought to my attention by our intrepid assistant producer, Alana. They showed a commercial with AOC's face on fire and said some really horrendous things. We'll bring you a little bit more about that in the second half of the show. But if you were watching ABC this morning or you're planning on it after the show, turn it off because there's a boycott going on because of that. More on that in a little while. But we are lucky to have our guest on with us. A new Democratic proposal. Let's talk Social Security. A new Democratic proposal that's out there is going to increase Social Security benefits and phase in a 1.2 percentage point increase in Social Security taxes on workers and employees over 25 years. Now, this burden that this puts on workers is real, but focusing on that ignores the real issue that workers have suffered as a result of wage growth that's distributed to CEOs and not lower-level workers. We're speaking with Dean Baker from the Center for Economic and Policy Research today about how the media covers Social Security compared to what's really going on. Dean, hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Juliana?
Good. Thank you so much for being on the program with us. Did you watch the debate last night by any
I actually didn't.
Misleads us about Social Security issues.
Yeah. I've been doing work on Social Security for more than a quarter century, since '92 when I first came to Washington. And there's this continual pattern where they project out and they go, oh, we're going to have this shortfall in the Social Security fund, and it's this horrible, horrible thing. And that's, of course, true. I mean, the projections do show that. But what they don't do is give any perspective on the size. So one way, and this bill that you mentioned does propose very modest increases in Social Security tax. And that's true, like, oh, my God, you're going to increase the Social Security tax. And what I point out was increased Social Security tax in the decade of the 1940s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. This is actually a much smaller increase in Social Security tax than any of those decades. Some people go, well, you want to tax middle-class people because it does. You go, well, yeah, that is true. But
what about the fact that real wages have not increased for most of these folks since the 70s? Putting an additional tax seems like an additional burden.
Well, the point is we should be focused on real wages increasing. So
right.
When people say, oh, well, we're just going to assume that real wages won't increase, you go, well, that may prove to be true, but that should be our focus because we have about 20 times as much money at stake in workers getting their share of productivity growth. So back in those prior decades, certainly through the 70s, workers got their share of productivity growth. That was not true in the 80s, the 90s, the first decade of the century. That wasn't true, and this decade's been a mixed story. But that's the key issue. So the media will focus on the Social Security tax and say, oh, my God, you want to tax ordinary workers. But the real point is we need real wage growth. They have to get their share of wage growth, and then no one's going to like a tax. I'm not under illusions like that. Who likes to pay more in taxes? But in the 60s, people weren't rebelling because their Social Security taxes went up. They had good wage growth, so it just wasn't that big an issue that some of it, some portion of it, say 5% of it was taken back in higher Social Security tax.
So if you're listening to a media coverage or, say, a Wall Street Journal article or something like that where they're just focusing on that increase without talking about what we need to be doing, which is increase real wages, then you know you're in a lopsided story.
Yeah, I mean, they've diverted people's attention because, no one wants to pay higher taxes, fair enough, but the point is the real money is on the wage side.
My understanding is that Social Security actually works and it's fairly well funded, and this crisis that the right wing is always screaming about, that it's going to bankrupt the nation, that it's bankrupting itself, et cetera, is far overblown from the reality.
Sure. I mean, it's fully funded for now. It's projected to start to face a shortfall in 2034. We could still pay a bit less than 80% benefits, even if we never did anything. Now, I say that sometimes people are saying, you want to cut benefits by 20%. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to give context. So it doesn't go to zero. It goes to 80%. So that's very, very far from zero. But, yeah, so you want to make up the shortfall. And Representative Larson's put forward this proposal. It's a tax increase that would fully make up the shortfall. So the idea that it's going off a cliff, that it's going to bankrupt the country, it's nonsense. And in terms of the positive side, Social Security has lifted tens of millions of people out of poverty. And I know a lot of conservatives, they say, well, the elderly are living well. Or, it's too generous. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
the
think many
elderly are
people-
really living well. They're high
Yeah,
on hog.
yeah. I don't think
Because
many
they don't
people
have
would say-
increased medical needs also. Even if they are living well, they have to, they have increased medical needs, needs for community, for moving around, that society is not set up to support them. They're fine with that $200
Yeah,
check.
and one of the stories with Medicare is because of so many holes in coverage, and Medicare is a great program, but there are holes in coverage, that the average senior is paying a larger share of their income in healthcare expenses today than they did before we instituted Medicare in 65. So, again, Medicare, I'm not knocking Medicare, and it's great, but it still leaves plenty of holes. So the idea that seniors are living high on the hog, obviously very rich seniors are, but that's not the typical senior.
If the media were covering Social Security issues in an honest way, what else would they be focusing on? And how should we read these pieces with even more critical eye than just about sort of jobs growth? Or, excuse me, real wage growth?
Well, I think focusing on its positive side. So,
Oh, yeah, they never
again,
say that. They're like, taxes at 1%. They're not like, people are not starving because of this.
it's a tremendously efficient program. So it's one, you so often hear stories of government waste and bureaucrats who don't know what they're doing. And sure, sometimes that's true. We have a large government, so inevitably some of it is wasted. But Social Security is a remarkably efficient program. The administrative expenses are about half of 1% of what gets paid out in benefits each year. And there's not a lot of fraud, abuse. I remember the Washington Post did this huge story. It was on the front page, and there was 2 full pages inside. And they had found that, I'm forgetting the exact number, but it was about $3 trillion in benefits. So you were talking about something like 1/100 of 1%. And furthermore, the vast majority of these cases weren't fraud. It's, someone has a relative die, they don't think that the first thing they should do is call the Social Security office and go, oh, stop sending the check. So,
Right.
so you had cases where people continue to get a check for 1, 2, 3 months, and somewhere around half that money was recovered because the Social Security Administration contacts the next of kin, whoever was responsible, and they go, hey,
Can't they cover funeral costs? Those are expensive too these days.
They do cover that. They do
There
cover
you
that,
go.
but sometimes maybe they didn't file for it. In any case, this is really a trivial amount in terms of the money being paid out in the program. And again, what was here is, oh my God, what are they doing? They're just throwing money all over the place, and they don't point out, well, this is a program that spent about $3 trillion over that period. So it wasn't that, oh, they're just throwing
Because
money
if
all over
they
the
say
place.
if they say that, then they don't have a news story. They need to
It would
shock
look
people,
ridiculous.
get
You did
eyeballs.
this big, huge front page story and 2 full pages inside because 1/100 of 1% of the money went to dead people, and half of that ended up being recovered anyhow. They
Yeah,
look
that's not
like
a story.
idiots, which
Slow
they
news day, I guess.
kind of were.
You'd think there wouldn't be any slow news days under Trump, but still, those articles still managed to get out there. Can I ask a related question? Immigrants on work visas, do they pay into Social Security?
They do, and again,
And they
one
may
of
never
the-
get it back because
They may
they
not.
may
Yeah,
be deported.
so it's when you have this story about immigrants ripping us off, this and that. Well, they're paying their taxes.
They're
now,
paying your grandma's
obviously
Social Security check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you do have some cases where people are completely off the books and they're not paying taxes. Well, if they go to a store, they pay a sales tax and everything, but they're not paying Social Security taxes. But the vast majority of immigrants who are here are paying Social Security taxes.
Oh, man. Well, that's very exciting. I mean, that never comes up in the discussion, ever. They say they pay their taxes, but they never link, they're paying for your Social Security that they're probably not going to get any of unless there becomes a path to citizenship, which, by the way, Elizabeth Warren said she was definitely going to make last night.
Hopefully, if the Democrats do get in the White House, they will have immigration reform that does give a path to citizenship to people in some cases who've been here decades.
Well, we're speaking with Dean Baker, co-founder of the Center for Economic and Policy Research. Dean, he's also the author of several books, by the way, which I highly suggest, including Rigged: How Globalization and the Rules of the Modern Economy Were Structured to Make the Rich Richer. You can get more Dean every other week here on our show, but also at Beat the Press, his blog, which provides this kind of commentary on economic reporting. Dean, thanks so much for joining us on the program today.
Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate. Look forward to the next time you come on. You're listening to Waking Up. I'm Juliana Forlano in the studio with King Downing. We'll be right back after this musical break.
I'll tell you what clear, Joe. In the United States of America, we are spending twice as much per capita on health care as the Canadians or any other major country on earth. I believe that the United States, yeah, but Americans don't want to pay twice as much as other countries, and they guarantee health care to all people. I believe under my Medicare for All proposal, when you don't pay out of pocket and you don't pay premiums, maybe you have run into people who love their premiums. I have it. What people want is cost-effective health care. Medicare for all will save. Not in the media and not in Congress. You got 3 people in America owning more wealth than the bottom half of this country. You got a handful of billionaires controlling what goes on in Wall Street, the insurance companies, and in the media. Maybe, just maybe, what we should be doing is creating an economy that works for all of us, not 1%. That's my understanding of democratic socialism.
Some on this stage have suggested a voluntary buyback for guns in this country. You've gone further. You said, quote, Americans who own AR-15s and AK-47s will have to sell them to the government, all of them. You know the critics call this confiscation. Are you proposing taking away their guns, and how would this work?
I am, if it's a weapon that was designed to kill people on a battlefield. If the high-impact, high-velocity round, when it hits your body, shreds everything inside of your body because it was designed to do that so that you would bleed to death on a battlefield and not be able to get up and kill one of our soldiers. When we see that being used against children, and in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15, and that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot.
Lenape Nation Chief Dwaine Perry, who's going to talk to us about powwows, toxic land, and protests. So welcome to WBAI again, Chief.
Well, thank you, King. Blessings to all of you.
So you've got a powwow coming up this weekend. So tell us quickly or briefly about that, and then I want to get into the context of what's going on around the tribe. So what's going on?
Sure. Well, this weekend we're having a celebration that most people know as a powwow, which essentially is like a large gathering, sort of a family reunion where friends and...
Oh, we love jokes.
So walk us through what happens. So tell me what happens at the beginning. How does it start? And then, whether the next 1 or 2 phases that the powwow moves into.
Yeah, generally we have what's called the grand opening. Starts at 12 o'clock. Which is going to be a gathering of all of the people who are going to be participating in the powwow in terms of dancing. Primarily, we're going to have people there from at least some representation from all of the tribes of the Northeast, which would be New York, Long Island, that sector. So we'll come together, we'll all come out together and dance around and welcome all of our guests that come to the powwow. So that'll be the initial opening. That'll be at 12 o'clock.
And the sound that we heard, I should have credited in the beginning, was music from your 2013 powwow. And that was something of a taste of what people are going to see and hear. Now, in the midst of the celebration and the spirituality, there are some issues that are going on within your nation in terms of your interactions with people on the outside. Could you tell us a little of the early history and then what's going on now?
Right. Well, initially, most people really have never heard of is that we've been written out of history in the sense that without the aid of my ancestors, there would literally have been no successful American experiment. And I'm saying that to say that we allowed what was then the rebels, George Washington and such, to use our redoubt, the Ramapough Pass. Without the use of the Ramapough Pass, it would have been literally impossible for for the rebels to have a successful prosecution of the American Revolution in the New England colonies. And I'm saying that to say that the only way that the British could reinforce their troops into New England was off the Atlantic, coming from down from Canada or around through Pennsylvania, which really eliminated, by not being allowed access to the Ramapough Pass, it eliminated any strategic surprise or advantage.
Mm.
So now, because of your help, they're victorious, and then
community whereby we have our ceremonial grounds. We were fortunate enough to reach some settlement with the village and with the town of Malwall, but we're still looking to work through a number of issues with what these people call their housing association. And essentially what that was since, I'd say November of 2016, we've been under daily assault, which really comes down to manipulation of the law and just out and out purely just racist tactics.
And are they trying to take your land?
Yeah, it was just.
Well, they were trying to take it. Mm-hmm. They didn't meet with any success. So now that sort of portion is over with. But they have caused us a tremendous amount of damage, and we have a member is currently in jail behind purely trumped-up charges.
Oh boy!
No positive ID.
So just
no weapon.
Yeah, just to summarize, you in response to the Standing Rock protests and the fact that a pipeline was coming towards your area, you set up the Sweetwater Prayer Camp and began to have spiritual ceremonies there. And the town of Mahwah, at the prodding of what I call the Billionaire Boys and Girls Club, who have taken some of the land in the middle of your sacred mountain and are now living there in luxurious mansions, put pressure on the town to begin to write summonses claiming that your teepees and your sheds and other things were properties that were developed without permits.
That's exactly correct. We put up some teepees in support of Standing Rock. We've always used the ceremonial ground has always been quietly been used for the last 20 years plus in our lifetime, plus for ceremonies. But since, like I said, November 16, when we put the teepee up, these people have done everything in their power to get the land out from under us. They said teepees were structures and needed permits. They said that sweat lodges were structures. They've come down there with 4 and 5 police cars for people having mulch. They've sent police over there for us having dirt. They've sent police over for having wood. They've called, at one point there was, I believe, 12 or 13 police cars showed up with people, with undercover cops jiggling their little guns because people were charging cell phones.
Chief,
I just wanted to say this. And then they arrested one of our people on a gun charge. Let me say this. They arrested him going to Party City with 2 plastic bags full of party balloons going back to Party City, supposedly with a gun charge, but not one cop, not one police officer came over to the camp to look for a gun. But they come over there full force on a bag of mulch.
Chief, have you had any support from people outside of the nation who are in solidarity with your cause?
We've had a lot of really great support from a lot of our allies, from many other tribal nations, but also from outside of the tribal entities.
And how can people support you, and your right to sovereignty?
Yeah. Well, I think right now our main concern is to help Ganaquio, Uncle Harold Malt to get out of jail. So I think in an effort to maybe contact both the governor and also here and there, you'll see there's going to be some legal fundraisers to help get him some legal support. You can help that way. I think on just another everyday way, please come to the powwow on the weekend and enjoy yourself.
Where is it?
It's going to be in Ringwood, New Jersey. It's right next to Ringwood Manor, very easy to find.
On Saturday?
Saturday and Sunday, yes.
Both days. And it starts at noon, as you said, Ringwood.
Yes.
Repeat the name of the park.
It's Ringwood Manor.
Sounds
which is
great.
ironic. Another part of the problem, whereby we have people who have been living in that area, the very mines that Ford began dumping toxins in, are the mines that produced the first 900 cannonballs in the American Revolution, the chain across the Hudson, the Capitol Dome, the Lady of Freedom atop the dome, were all produced from Ramapough Lenape iron deposits.
So
And
let's.
unlike the mine,
No, I wanted to jump ahead because you just mentioned the mines and the historic part of the mines, but what was the modern use of the mines? What did Ford Motor Company do with those mines, and what effect did it have on your people who were on that land?
That's exactly what I wanted to thank you. Ford Motor Company wanted to put high-end executive housing up where the natives lived, where the Ramapoughs lived. They couldn't do it. They began filling the mines with tons of toxic waste.
Wow.
What that resulted in today is that about 30 to 35% of the, or better, of the Ramapough population that live there have perished through exotic cancers and things caused by the toxins, and even perhaps more threatening is that it's starting to leach into the water cycle. If that happens, and then in addition to not just leaching into the water cycle to make that toxic to 4 or 5, 12 million people.
Oh, well, when it affects white people, maybe they'll start caring about it.
Well, I think this is insidious. They just discovered this one. I think it's a 1.4 dioxane, which is like a super toxin.
Mm-hmm.
And once that leaches into the water, essentially that's going to destroy the water cycle that feeds Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, and they're dirty, Newark's already having their problems with lead, et cetera. Yeah. So.
Right. That and the rest of northern New Jersey, then everybody else will be, I'm sure they'll be over concerned with water then.
Well, Chief, thank you for sounding the alarm bell on this. That's really important. And I wonder, is there anyone suing Ford to get them to clean it up? You busy, King?
Well, right now, Ford, what they want to do, we're dealing with it right now, is instead of removing all of the toxins and destroying it, what they're doing now is they want to cap it.
Oh, of course.
So that if they cap it and set a recycling plant above it, it will slowly but surely leach into the
water.
And what I'm dealing with also, one of our tribal members, going back to the Corzine administration, they told him that a big hole opened up in his yard. And they said, well, we're going to come and fix that. Well, finally, after something like 12 years, they showed up. They said they were going to fix his yard and all of that and help with his home. Well, they got the money. I think they got something north of $500,000. They offered this poor tribal member a new sewage tank and leave the sinkhole in his yard.
Wow. We're speaking with.
They're in negotiation at present. As you can see, apparently, I guess they still think it's custard and Indians.
Yeah, they most definitely do. And you're listening to WBAI 99.5 FM. The show is Waking Up with Juliana and King. And we're talking to Chief Dwaine Perry of the Ramapough Lenape Nation, who's talking to us about the powwow that he and his nation are having at Ringwood Manor in Ringwood, New Jersey, this Saturday and Sunday at 12 noon. The one part that I wanted you to elaborate on is that once Ford realized that this land was toxic and it was in their name, they made a donation. And tell us what happened with the land that was donated and what was done with it.
I'm not really clear if they actually made a donation, if Ford made a donation or not. I know that they had put, there was some housing built up there, but it was also built once again on toxic land.
That's it.
And there was a lawsuit. The lawsuit really turned into, I would say, one of the largest environmental boondoggles in the history of the country.
So if I can summarize, because I had a conversation with your clan chief, Manis, and he had said that Ford donated the land to some nonprofit housing development, nonprofit kind of
Yeah, they had
Yeah,
put up a number of housing, but it really had
on the toxic land,
yeah.
and
That's what I was going to say.
your people were living on that land. Is that
So
right?
Right.
they
So
didn't
it
clean
really
it. They
was
just
nothing.
built you a
They
house
went
on
from
top of
building
it.
a house on toxic land to a newer house on top.
Oh gosh. Well, that is no good. We need some more justice in this world.
Yeah, so we're gonna ask folks to support you all, but to support you all is a first step to turn out in full effect for the powwow. It's a chance to get immersed in Native culture, to have a good time in a weekend. I've been
I've
to
never
them.
been to a powwow.
They're
Can I bring my
great.
kid?
They're
Is
great.
it cool for kids?
They're kid friendly. They're very kid friendly, and so that's a way to to ease into the cultural and the celebration part, because we don't all want to be just downers about it, but then find ways to support them both with their attacks on the Sweetwater Prayer Camp, and then also to get them to rectify the toxic land that they're now living on and sharing.
So that powwow is Saturday and Sunday at Ringwood Manor Park in Ringwood, New Jersey. Thanks, Chief, for coming on the program, and thanks for bringing light to some of the issues you're dealing with. And we look forward to seeing you on this weekend.
Right. Let me thank both you and WBAI and all your listeners. Please come out.
Oh, I think that would be wonderful. Hey, thank you so much. You're listening again to Waking Up. I'm Juliana Forlano in the studio with King Downing. It is Friday the 13th. What do I have for Friday the 13th? I've got this, and I've got this. Little evil laugh and dun, dun, dun. It's also a full moon. It's the harvest moon, named the harvest moon because it's supposed to shed light so that the farmers can work later into the night as they're harvesting, because this is harvest season and not just for a Neil Young song.
So I guess
Young
in
album.
New York, it's called the party moon.
Is that what it
The
is?
hangout
Oh,
moon.
Yeah, like we can't even see the moon. It's so bright here
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time anyway. A city that never sleeps. 61 degrees here in New York City, going up to 72 and sunny today. I hope you enjoy your Friday. There is a tropical storm-forced winds not coming here but to Florida. So we're keeping our eyes on what there is. I don't know if you watch the Weather Channel, but they seem like they're gunning for that next storm. There's another one. Look, there's a cloud. Maybe it'll be a category 7. They're just like, it's kind of gross over there. They're hot for the next storm. On the program today, joining us for our 5 p.m. program. Very excited. Hey. Is he on the... Is Esther on the line?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes,
hi,
I'm
Esther.
here.
Sorry, got a little confused on this side. How are you?
Oh, I'm good.
I feel
Happy
like...
September.
Oh, yes. I feel like we haven't spoken in some time. Was it...
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I have to take a break.
Oh, I get it. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
What's on the show for tonight?
So I spent some time talking with family members of those who were killed in Boeing's the second crash of the Boeing 737 MAX. And they were at a vigil, very, very moving, very touching vigil rally, I guess you would call it, outside the Department of Transportation. And some of them had just met with Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao before the vigil.
Boeing Max, that's the second plane of the same type that crashed, right? Or right on takeoff. Is that the white one?
Right, and this one crashed in Ethiopia.
Yes.
And Ethiopia Airways and Airlines. And the their stories and hearing them talk about their loved ones and actually their anger at there shouldn't have been a second crash because
yeah?
they knew after the first crash they knew something was wrong. So
Are
these
people suing Boeing for this? I want to get litigious.
My understanding is that there are some settlements underway.
Mm-hmm.
I saw one report that Boeing had offered a certain amount of money so they wouldn't go to court.
Oh, a nice quiet settlement so Boeing doesn't have to be dragged
they would not
through
go
the
to
mud.
court.
We can
And
still drag them through the mud here on WBAI, even though.
Yeah, I'm not sure the legal intricacies of that, but that's I spent a considerable amount of time with the families of those who lost their lives, and then we also have some, I guess, I guess I wanted to be more lighthearted than it is, but just talking about, John Bolton making his exit from the White House. Bye,
That
yay.
is kind of lighthearted. That's good.
I wanted it
Hooray.
to be more lighthearted than it is, ding dong, the wicked witch is dead, that kind of thing. But
That's
to
good.
have a
We gotta do that.
conversation about that, and just some headlines and other things happening.
All the good stuff that we normally see on the ground at 5 p.m. here on WBAI, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's so good to have you back. I've missed you.
Oh, okay. I'm glad to be missed.
Hey, maybe sometime you got to come on our show and just be a guest. It'd be great.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to hook it up.
All right.
All right. The show is on the ground with Esther Verum. Did I get it wrong?
Oh, you got it right.
Ba-bam! I have been practicing. I'm celebrating for myself now. I've been practicing. I want to make sure it's right.
Oh my goodness!
It's a big party.
Sarcasm early in the morning.
I'm sorry. No, I really was. I just feel bad because somehow I didn't get it right like 5 times in a row, and then you went on vacation and I practiced.
Oh, good. No, I just thought that the engineer was like playing like applause music for you,
No, I played it for myself, but thank you.
All right.
All right, 5 p.m. on the ground here on WBAI. Thanks for listening, or thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
King, what are you doing this weekend?
Haven't figured it out.
I'm going to powwow.
Oh, okay.
That's a good thing to do.
That was on the list. I just drew a blank for a second, trying to
I'm
figure out
looking for
what was going to happen
kitty
when.
stuff to do. It's me and Kitty and me and the little girl all weekend by myself.
The kids, she will love the powwow.
Yeah?
It's colorful. All the dances have lots of jingling bells.
We are
there
so
are
going.
feathers and
I love coming. I love this job.
Yeah.
Because we get so many great things. I took her to that. What was that African festival that we talked about where we had the guests?
Yeah.
I took her there. It was amazing. She got her face painted, and she learned to dance. There was a whole thing going on there, and there is one of the books where the kids have a festival like supporting. One of her kiddie books has a festival supporting a country in Africa. And she's like, we saw that, we did that, like the pictures in the book. It's kind of cool. So I think real life learning out there in the world is very important.
I think that's great that you're going to do that.
Yeah. I hope they have parking.
Oh, out there, that's not an
Jersey.
issue.
It's the state of
Jersey.
parking.
It is a big parking lot.
I hope you guys are having a great weekend. You've been listening to Waking Up all week on Monday. Guess who's coming back? Bob Henley. He's going to be reporting on how there's some gender disparity in 9/11 victims' compensation. And Dr. Julianne Malveaux will be joining us on Monday, our favorite Mondays. It's going to be amazing. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a lovely weekend. And I hope you have a great day. Treat yourself well. Be well. See you next week.